Hello, welcome to my channel. This is take 2 of this video because I didn't like the first one. So today's video is all about thyroid and hyperthyroidism and my journey with it. But what is a thyroid is the first common question. So bringing up the NHS.com and what they define it as, because I've only used credited sources of what like to try and give you the best information from the best sources. So reading on my phone, here we go, NHS.UK. An overactive thyroid, also known as hypothyroidism, is where the thyroid gland produces too much of the thyroid hormones. The thyroid is a small butterfly-shaped gland in the neck in the front of the windpipe. It produces hormones that affect things such as your heart rate and body temperature. So this is a little butterfly-shaped thing, that part of your body that is here. And it affects not just your mental state, but your physical state. And it's something I got diagnosed personally with when I was 9. So I have all my notes here so I don't miss out any points. It also controls your metabolism. So if you feel like you are, you know, overweight or underweight, you know, and you can't understand why, then that's always a good option. What does the thyroid do? So it controls the nervous system. It controls your metabolism. It's 10 times more common in women between the ages of 20 and 40. That's when most women do get diagnosed. To find out how you have, you know, your thyroid levels, you have to get a blood test done. And this is your TS3 and your TS4 levels in your blood. Your TS3 is checking that your thyroid function is properly functioning. And your TS4 is how well the TS3 converts into the TS4. So they're 4 atoms of iodine. So you might be thinking, what's the difference between an underactive and an overactive? So an overactive is your thyroid is producing too much hormones, and your underactive is producing not enough or none at all. So these are common symptoms to differentiate between the two. If you have an underactive thyroid, you may experience some common symptoms such as weight gain. You might be tired, you might be anxious, you might have unexplained mood swings, you may be sleeping a lot or a little and your sleeping may not be sufficient. If you're overactive, you are generally in the higher metabolism and you lose weight a lot faster. Some of the symptoms like tiredness can cross over between the two, but I am aware from my own research on the thyroid that if you have an overactive thyroid, obviously of certain levels which I'm unsure about, you can actually get it cured by radiotherapy or medication. You can kind of ease off it to kind of slow down your thyroid, and as you get older, as most people see, their metabolism does slow down. However, with an underactive thyroid, so that's hypothyroidism, generally you are on medication for the rest of your life, because it's not like you can revamp your thyroid and just try and get it working. Another symptom of underactive thyroid, and this video is more focused on the underactive thyroid in general, is you may be sensitive to the cold, depression, memory lapses, dry skin, constipation. Let me just flip over my page. And also, if you do have an underactive thyroid, something I've really been researching recently is there is an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto disease, and this is it's your immune system attacks your thyroid, so you don't make enough TS4. So that is more of a severe case of an underactive thyroid. Complications. So complications of the thyroid, there's one main almost like symptom that you definitely can see. So that is your goiter. Now if you look at my neck, this is a goiter. So going back to my story now, I had a goiter up until about a year ago, probably about a year ago, and I have been diagnosed with an underactive thyroid since I was 9. So if you do have a goiter, it's a swelling of hormones, and I never knew any of this until I started researching. And if you don't treat an underactive thyroid, it can lead into severe issues that you might need to address later. So that might be heart disease, it might be mental health problems, birth defects. It's hereditary generally, and you can get tested for Hashimoto disease. So it's an antibody test. So it's an abnormal production of antibodies, which is not always positive. The tests for Hashimoto disease aren't researched enough from my research, and I will list all my references down below, by the way, so that it's just so that we're all on the same page of where I got this information from. It generally seems like Hashimoto disease is really hard to actually test, and they do need to, they do have a test, but it's not 100% accurate. So the best foods to eat when you are, been diagnosed with an underactive thyroid, or you're slowly going onto medication, would be any fish with high omega-3, so that helps with inflammation and immunity. So for example, salmon, tuna, trout, or sardines. Nuts. Number 2 is nuts high in seleninum. Sorry if I said that wrong. Seleninum. It helps the thyroid function. So it's Brazil nuts, macadamia nuts, and hazelnuts. Walnuts can interfere with the thyroid absorption medication when you are taking them. So for example, I take my thyroid medication first thing in the morning, and I love walnuts, so I'm not going to stop eating them. So I eat them predominantly towards the second half of my day, towards bedtime. 3 is fresh fruits and vegetables. Fiber, there's so many antioxidants, so many nutrients, and this actually contradicts my own story that I'll go on to. Number 4 is seaweed, so it's essential for the thyroid function. Iodine is the precursor for the production of the thyroid function. And number 5 is beans. So for example, kidney beans or black beans. So it maintains high energy, and it is complex carb. When something is a complex carb, your body takes that much longer to digest it, and it will also sustain a longer amount of energy, because if you think about it, your body's breaking it down, like release that energy slowly. And 6 would be eggs. Cerealinum levels are high, especially in the yolk. But problem foods you should avoid when you have an underactive thyroid is, this is all taken, by the way, from thyroid.org.uk. Number 1 is Brussels sprouts and cabbage. Number 2 is almonds, peanuts, and walnuts. 3 is sweet corn. 4 is soya. So combined with the thyroid hormone, and iodine exerted from the body, it's not a good combination. 5 is kale and tulips. So these groups of foods are called gatogenic foods. So they're anti-thyroid drug absorbing, disabling the thyroid function. So salt is not too good for the thyroid either, and too much foods. If you consume a lot of these foods, the first symptom that you may see is your goiter. So you might have it looks like a protruding neck, but it's not really, like I had for years. Also, a big area of research within the thyroid, and if you read about it and the science behind it, is the relationship with gluten. So actually, as you've known from a previous video, I think I've been gluten-free strictly for 5 to 6 years, and this has really helped my thyroid function. So thyroid, if you eat a gluten-free diet, you have a lower immunity response and reduced inflammation of the thyroid gland. So it can trigger the disease if you have too much thyroxine. Whew, that was a lot of information. So basically, in a nutshell, your thyroid doesn't just control your physical well-being, your weight gain, weight loss, everything. It also controls this. Your mental, which I think they both go hand in hand to live a healthy lifestyle. Now, on to my story. So when I was 9, I think it was 9 or 10, I was really ill, and we had something, we had class tests, and I remember my dad's brother is a doctor, and he had said to my dad, okay, bring her into the hospital. She's been ill for like 2 to 3 months. And it was like a really severe flu cold, like I was handling it. And then around 9 or 10, I was slightly bigger than my classmates, for example. You should never compare, but I was slightly on the larger side. And I kept getting tested, and I remember them putting this jelly on my neck, and then doing this test, and I was like, I was super young, and I was like, I don't know what they're testing for. And then when I was 10, either 9.5 or 10, I was diagnosed with an underactive thyroid, which means your thyroid doesn't produce enough hormones. And this meant that I was in hospital a lot, every month, I think, in the beginning. And they were continually checking and checking and checking my thyroid levels. And to develop a thyroid condition at the age of 9 or 10, either you're not born with one and you're put on medication for the rest of your life, or you suddenly get sprung upon of, oh, you've got this condition, you have to stop eating these foods. That's all I remember growing up. I couldn't eat oranges and grapes. I don't know why. And my mum had to really restrict my diet. I went from school lunches to packed lunches. We had to try and bring my weight down. I remember my doctor showing me this body weight graph, and I was like above the line, like way above the line. She was like, you need to lose some weight. So this was all good. And then I was on medication, and I think around 12, 13 I realized I'd have to be on medication for the rest of my life, and that's kind of against how I've always been. And I was like, oh great, okay, cool, you know, it's not the ideal situation. It took me a long time to realize that. And then around 16 I realized I had to lose some weight, and it wasn't anyone telling me. It was, okay, this is becoming unhealthy. When I was 14 years old, I was about size 18, and I was like 15 maybe. I was, you know, I grew out of kids' clothes really quickly, but funny now I can fit into them. But it's something that I didn't really realize could happen, and it was, okay, cool, we need to get on this. So I kept going for tests every 3 months, well, month to 3 months, for about up until the age of 18. And then I left for university. And then I really, for the first 4 or 5 months, I wasn't tested. And I did a test in the February of that year, and I was fine. And then come the September of the same year, I was sleeping. And I'm one of these people that can function off 6 hours of sleep. I'm okay. I was sleeping like 14 hours plus a day, or I'd get up to eat and go back to sleep. That was very unlike me, and I knew something was wrong. And now looking back, I think I did have slight depression and not realizing why. So moving on from that, I then realized that, okay, cool, I can kind of tell when my thyroxine is wrong. So now I just go to the doctors when I feel, you know, I'm a little bit tired, or I kind of pick up on a symptom, but I don't always pick up on them. The people around me are the closest, and they realize either I'm too snappy or I'm a bit moody. That's not me. I'm like super positive, good energy, full of energy all the time. And it was like, I now have to gauge as an adult who's been diagnosed with it for nearly 12, 13 years, how it works. It's not something that's a priority, and I really think that thyroidism and people's thyroid should be tested more regularly. Yes, you can't just, you know, for example, with diabetes, you have to take an injection, but with having a thyroid condition, and especially developing it so young, it's taught me I need to research, and I want to learn more about the Hashimoto disease. So if you have any, you know, experiences or anything, share it in this video. But I'm on a journey with my thyroid, and that's kind of what kickstarted my whole health, why I need to eat a certain way, and my whole well-being. Obviously, I'm upset because I would prefer not to have it and prefer for it not to be hereditary. But in the long term, I feel like I could try and help some people out there, and I've learned a lot on my journey. If I could help, you know, something with you, that would be most beneficial to me. So you can leave a comment, email, or DM me on Instagram, and I'll leave my Instagram handle here, somewhere here. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope to see you next time, and give it a like and subscribe. Thank you.